So I imagine one of the key things here is the definition of livestock. So how was that defined? Was it really broad? And I imagine if a lot of people felt like they need to sell their house or really change their lifestyle, that seems to be pretty broad.
So in New Hampshire, livestock can be anything from bees, goats, horses, rabbits. Basically, if you have two rabbits in your backyard for your kids, rabbits are considered livestock. Can't have them, no. Yeah, it's livestock is pretty broad. Llamas, alpacas. You might have an alpaca business, and now you don't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now you're starting to talk about people's livelihoods, or even, because this is, you said 3 acres, right? I mean, sometimes people have a horse on 3 acres, just, their kid likes to ride, and it's nice lifestyle to have. I mean, it's not like it's on a half acre.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. We've all heard stories of neighbors getting into disputes, but have you ever heard of one spilling over and affecting the whole town? That's exactly what happened in a dispute over livestock in a New Hampshire town. There was a citizen petition to put on the ballot something that would ban livestock on properties with less than 3 acres. The ban passed, and because of the definition of livestock, this ban affected families who kept certain animals as pets. In response, a group of determined citizens band together and fought to overturn it. So, did they succeed? Let's find out from our guest who led the effort to overturn the ban. I want to welcome John Spottiswood to the podcast. John, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Same for you.
Well, so I'm really interested to hear this. This sounds like, some great grassroots activism with, overreach and individual liberty and livestock and some good New England drama. I'm very excited to hear about this. So what, maybe describe for me, like what livestock were neighbors fighting over, and maybe just set up the situation for me.
Okay. So from what we know, and we're pretty sure, it pretty much started with 2 neighbors. One of the neighbors had pigs, for quite a while. The neighbors that moved into the new development didn't like the smell. They were friends for a while, and I don't know what happened, but things went south, and they just couldn't come up with an agreement to work it out. And that group, or those neighbors, when they couldn't get the person to get rid of the pigs, decided to put a citizen's petition to ban livestock, I think with the intention, thinking that was going to make them get rid of the pigs. But that wasn't necessarily the case.
So what town are you talking about in New Hampshire? Where do you live?
Pelham, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay, great. And what's the mechanism for being able to put something on the ballot that has the force of law?
Well, in New Hampshire, the citizen's petition is a pretty sacred thing, and it can be very, it's as binding as a warrant article, and it's as simple as 25 signatures, and that's it. Yep.
No, I was just gonna say, I know you guys in New Hampshire really take your democracy very, your democratic duties very, very seriously. From the size of your legislature to your access to, petitions like this, to the first in the nation primary. So 25 signatures, that seems like a really low bar to have something that has the force of law. Wow.
Yep. You can get that in about 5 minutes around here. And it can be a very powerful tool if you use it correctly. In this case, it was a very damaging tool because it was used incorrectly.
So they collect the signatures. Do you know, to the best of your knowledge, was there any upheaval or talk about this prior to the pig neighbor incident?
Not the citizen's petition. That was that came after a couple months of the neighbor contacting local animal control, contacting the state, and the state came out and said, listen, the guy's doing nothing wrong. Unfortunately, that's how it works in New Hampshire. And so they decided that the citizen's petition was their only recourse. So they move forward with that.
So they got on the ballot and the community voted on it. And how many people voted for it, you know?
I want to say on that local election, we lost. The petition passed by just about 200 votes. And I want to say there was a total of, we had probably about 16 to 18% turnout. So probably that election, we had about maybe 2,000, give or take, votes that year. So it was pretty close. Like I said, though, vote did pass by just under 200 votes.
How big's your town? Do you know how many people live there?
We got about 10,000 plus voters, registered voters.
That's right. It's about 18% turnout. Yeah. So a small percentage made the decision to ban livestock. So, after that happens, sometimes there's buyer's remorse. I mean, how did the community react?
It was not good. We had pet owners giving away their animals, forfeiting deposits that they had on animals. We had people that were, considering putting up their home because they thought they had to move to keep their animals. It was, wow. It was pretty poorly planned. There was a lot of misinformation, and it was pretty traumatic. After the election, there was a lot of people and there was a lot of misinformation, and it was a tough go for the first couple of weeks.
So I imagine one of the key things here is the definition of livestock. So how was that defined? Was it really broad? And I imagine if a lot of people felt like they need to sell their house or really change their lifestyle, that seems to be pretty broad.
Yep. So in New Hampshire, livestock can be anything from bees, goats, horses, rabbits. Basically, if you have two rabbits in your backyard for your kids, rabbits are considered livestock. Can't have them, no. Yeah, it's livestock is pretty broad. Llamas, alpacas. You might have an alpaca business, and now you don't. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now you're starting to talk about people's livelihoods, or even, because this is, you said 3 acres, right? I mean,
yes. Sometimes
people have a horse on 3 acres, just, their kid likes to ride, and it's nice lifestyle to have. I mean, it's not like it's on a half acre.
Right. Yeah. In most of Pelham is a minimum of a 1 acre lot anyways. Mm-hmm. And it's not exactly the easiest town to go get 3 usable acres. I mean, you can find 3 acres with 2.5 of it being wetlands, but then, that's not usable, unless you want to spend, go out and spend another $500,000 on a 3 acre lot. So it wasn't the easiest thing for a lot of people to do. So
starting to cause some upheaval in a few months after it's passed. How did you engage, and what did you and the other folks that got it that started to push back here? What did you guys do?
Oh, we obviously had some training. We'd been through our GLA training, so we knew right away that there was a lot of emotion involved, and we knew we had to get busy right away with the emotional part. And the first thing we did was right after the election, we put the word out to everybody to meet at the next planning board meeting, because this was a land use ordinance, so it came through, had to go through planning, and on our repeal effort, we'd have to go through planning as well. So the next meeting after the election, we just said, meet us at town hall. There's a planning board meeting going on. It's 7:00 at night. If you want to fix this, come join us. And we had a pretty good showing, and it gave us the opportunity to get, to meet a lot of people, reassure them that it can be fixed. It's not hopeless. And we just, from right then and there, we just started the whole mechanism of getting people involved, finding out who's affected, and starting to, evaluate who can be our personal stories. And we just carried it from there.
Well, hey, as someone who hosts a podcast, I'm a big fan of telling the personal stories, because otherwise we wouldn't have much of a very interesting podcast. But I think it is, I think you mentioned GLA, or Grassroots Leadership Academy training that AFP's offered for, over a decade or more. And I know that you and your family have gone through it, and so many people up in New Hampshire have been trained by our Grassroots Leadership Academy team and really used it to great effect, made your activism in your own community across the state much, much more effective. And one of those things is telling good stories that put a face and emotion with the policy or the statistics or whatever we're talking about. And so you guys went out and started getting these stories. What did those sound like?
Oh, we had a lot of people that had animals for personal reasons. Some were pets, some were, whether you wanted milk, goat milk, mostly pets. But we came across some folks that used their animals. Like one woman that was in our group, she had a full-size horse and a mini horse, and the mini horse was her grandson's therapy animal. Oh, you can't get much more powerful than that. So now you had an issue where she has to get rid of her mini horse, who's a therapy animal for her grandson. Mm-hmm. We had another woman or a couple that their two daughters, were on the spectrum, and the animals were their therapy.
Yeah.
So we found a lot of that, so we had a lot of those personal stories, and it was just, once we got into it, we started, these people weren't raising these animals for food. They, some people have dogs. These people chose to have goats, sheep, mm-hmm. alpacas, and that's the power where it really hit home. And we tried to really work with those people to stay with us, and eventually they would be telling their stories, and they did.
I think you and I probably come from a similar position ideologically, where we just want to say, hey, this is individual liberty. People have the freedom to have the pets they want, the livestock they want, the animals they want, for whatever reason. In the real world, that doesn't always carry the day. As much as it might blow our minds that everybody doesn't agree with that all the time. I think that the stories where this is, these are emotional support animals or something of that sort is, that's a real thing, and it's so much more common. Plus, my sister-in-law has a lot of animals on a little farm, and goats have to be one of the cutest, funniest thing going. If you watch them, they're so wonderful.
Yep. And overall harmless, they're really harmless.
So what happened in order to get the ban overturned? How did take me through mechanically how that happened?
Okay. So obviously it's a warrant article. So when it passed, we knew we had to wait a year. We had a year there's nothing we could have done other than go to court. And that was an option. But we didn't feel that was the right way to do it. We thought we knew we could do better without going to court. And it was just going to take some work. So we just started recruiting people, and every couple of weeks we'd pick a location and say, please come talk to us. We need signatures. We need signatures, and we need, contact information. And we just did that. We started, a group page and stuff. And just once a week I'd put out information, factual information, and just kept, we didn't overdo it. We just kept it in people's minds, because we knew the hardest challenge was going to be keeping people's interest to the following election. Because you know how it works. People fade away, or memories fade away.
Right.
We just worked it constantly. My wife and some of the other members would go to the transfer station on Saturdays. The woman would bring her horse, would ride a horse down there, and they just they got people to stop and sign petitions, forms, collected hundreds and hundreds of them, because we knew when we had to go before the planning board, we were just going to bury them with them. And we just we kept it in the public spotlight as much as we could. We did some street theater. We had a livestock meet and greet.
Really?
So everybody brought their animals. Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah, you just say to people, why do you hate these animals?
Yep.
Look at them.
I was just saying, what we did too was on the social media part of it and on the page, when I would put out information, I would take pictures of these people's animals just to get the personal connection. And that was probably one of the strongest tools we had. And it just drew so many people in because now we connected their neighbor and their animals with kind of like a human element to it. And we could just tell the stories of what these animals meant to these people. And it was, that definitely kept it alive and well until we were ready for the next election.
So when was this? Was this in the last year?
Nope. The original citizens petition was put on the ballot in 2018.
Oh, wow.
And we repealed it in 2019.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah. Okay. That's when we were doing a lot of training up there too. Cool. So when you guys organized and then at the ballot, you end up winning? What was the count there? Do you know?
That was probably the most rewarding part. So our citizens petition to repeal it passed by 1,400 and something votes.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's pretty gratifying.
We flipped it pretty good.
So it had to be pretty gratifying to see this, overturned in such an overwhelming way. And it really was a win for property rights and freedom, like you mentioned. So, how did everybody feel about that?
Tired, but super excited. And I don't know if I want to use the word vindicated, but there was some of that.
Yeah.
We just felt like we worked really hard. We did everything the right way, professionally and honestly. And I think, we won the hearts and minds of a lot of people. And we met a lot of people along the way that said they voted for it, some because they didn't understand it, some because they felt bad for the people, the neighbors. But hearing our stories, talking to us and watching how hard we worked, they specifically came to because they felt bad how they voted to begin with. And so it was super rewarding. We made a lot of friends. We recruited a lot of people in the livestock community that we found out that has never voted ever locally. Now they did, and they're going to continue the vote. We got them involved, and we taught that, we I want to say taught, but we got them to stay involved to protect their interests. Because if they're not going to fight for it, you can't always. If they have to fight for their livestock rights as well. Yeah. So that was great. We got people to run for some boards, so it was super rewarding.
That's great. I mean, standing up for rights, inherent property rights, I think is really important. Just because someone doesn't like the way you live your life or the way the animals you choose to have doesn't really mean that you get to use the force of government to change that. So I'm glad that seems like the town kind of corrected. So just in closing, like what advice would you give someone else who's facing a local issue or, feels like they want to get involved and organize something to success here?
Make a plan and stick to it. Keep it professional and be honest. Don't get into the fray because that will present itself. And just stand up for what you believe. And one of the best things, in especially with a local issue like that, is, you have local officials that are always running for office, and you gotta hold them accountable. And we did. And if they wanted our votes, they had to take a side, and work your connections and build your coalitions and build your group. We did it with a very small group and spent almost no money. And we did it. It was just hard work and stay strong. You can do it.
Yeah, that's great. I think more and more people having the courage to stand up and get together, kind of, because it's a bold step when you have to first do that. So to be able to get together and take that action to change your community for the good, it's so important. That one small step to go out there and, advance freedom and liberty, really, and trying to stand up for our rights, kind of fulfill, live into what our nation was founded upon. I know you guys in New Hampshire know something about that.
A little bit. We tried.
Well, John, thanks so much for being on with us and telling us your story. You so appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for listening and giving us the opportunity.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll never have to do it.
Yeah. Hope so. Well, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.